What's up, girls? Today I'm going to be talking about posting short stories on Substack versus submitting them to literary magazines. I started my own Substack like 14 months ago, and I've published like 20 short stories on there, 30 poems, maybe 10 other miscellaneous things like essays or lists of books or just like other little like short nonfiction writing. And it's been really great. I think it's an awesome platform. I have like 80 subscribers. I've made a couple $100 from writing, which is cool because, it's like the first money I've ever made from writing after doing it for years, which is really awesome. And it's mostly just from my friends and family or whatever, which is also like really nice to get their support. But I've been applying for writing fellowships recently, and also I've been submitting my first novel to literary agencies, trying to get it published. And I've realized that to have been published in some literary magazines would carry a lot of weight in both of these processes. So I started looking into submitting my short stories that I'd already written to literary magazines, and I found out that most of the prestigious literary magazines won't accept any work that's already been published, and to publish your work on Substack is to technically publish. So I feel like I've shot myself in the foot a little bit, because of these 20 short stories, I definitely feel like at least 5 of them are good enough to be published at the kind of prestigious literary magazines, whether it be like The Atlantic or Granta or the Harper's Bazaar or New Yorker or whatever. And I'm just kind of realizing this is probably a thing that a lot of people don't know, or I didn't know. And I've realized that the process for now on for me should be to have an idea for a short story, write it, hopefully well, and then submit to the literary magazines that I like, that I think it fits the aesthetic and vibe for. And then if it doesn't get published at those literary magazines, then publish it on Substack. But it's kind of a long and tricky process. I've found out that a lot of these literary magazines take 3 to 9 months to respond sometimes, and they don't typically respond if it's rejection, so you kind of have to stay on top of that yourself. But that's a really long timeline, to then kind of circle back to a short story, which I guess could be a good thing, if you look at it that way, that the short story is not just a flippant kind of thought that you were having at that point in time, or it's not overly topical or whatever. But then on the other hand, I'm kind of I do view writing to an extent as a form of self-expression. So I don't know, figuring it out still. The other thing is if you submit to multiple literary magazines at once, I don't know, say if I submitted to the New Yorker and Granta at the same time, and the New Yorker was my first choice, but Granta got back to me first and said, hey, we want to publish your story. I guess at that point I'd just be grateful to be getting published at all, but the process for getting published at a literary magazine seems incredibly difficult. But yeah, that's my takeaway, that you should submit to literary magazines first and then publish on Substack after the fact. And I think if you do get published at a literary magazine, you can actually, you could either probably repost it from their Substack if they have a Substack and post it on their Substack, or you could probably just copy and paste the story on your Substack. I'm not sure how the copyright or licensing or whatever would work for that, but yeah. Thanks for watching.